Thank you, Kevin. How's everyone doing today? Nice. Thanks for coming through. It's really exciting to speak to you all today. We're going to shift gears a little bit and dive into the little bit of the world of Amazon. So, before we get started, out of curiosity, how many of you work with the platform at all in any way, shape, or form? How many of you have brands that do some work with Amazon? Okay, got it. All right. And now, just to get a feel for the room, how many of you feel a very positive relationship with your current Amazon business? Okay. And how many of you may see some room for improvement or wish that you could figure out more ways to better grow that business? Okay, interesting. All right, so today we're going to talk about Amazon. And what's really interesting, I think, that we've all noticed or observed is that when you mention the word Amazon from a customer's perspective, you often hear things like, man, I love Amazon. It's so convenient. I end up buying everything from there. And yet, from a retailer's perspective or those in the industry, the word is often accompanied by wariness, annoyance, sometimes even fear. And so, as a former Amazonian myself who worked directly with brands like many of yours, I experienced a conflict of interest. On the one hand, I worked for Amazon, and my goal was to increase Amazon's interest, but my job within the buying vertical was to grow the brands that I worked with on the platform. And so, one of the things that we saw and we just assumed was part of the job was knowing that certain major topics like pricing and customer traffic were completely off limits to talk to brands. And even though this rule is not wholly uncommon within retail, when the partner is Amazon and the account is one of your brand's largest online accounts, possibly, if not the largest, the lack of customer-facing data takes on a new meaning entirely. And so a brand could call me up and ask, why are my top 10 SKUs being marked down for more than 15%? Unless it was related to a promotion that we had direct influence or creation with, I wouldn't be able to answer. Or on the flip side, if they asked, how is my brand doing in terms of page views? Are customers still engaging with my product? Again, wouldn't be able to answer. And, don't even get me started on unauthorized sellers. So at some point, it became clear to me that the red tape was actually quite a big hindrance in allowing me to effectively educate and partner with brands. And so protecting one's own proprietary data is Amazon's prerogative. However, the lack of such critical data is simply the tip of the iceberg when it comes to factors that you need to evaluate your Amazon business by. And so eventually, this conflict of interest actually inspired me to found Quantified, which is an e-commerce data-driven management and SaaS firm. And we specialize in taking the best practices from managing Amazon brands on the platform with technology we've developed to help you overcome some of those most common obstacles. However, getting back to my point, some of those key factors I just mentioned, which is pricing, traffic, unauthorized sellers, often detrimentally affected a brand's overall online presence and brand equity. When your top SKUs are consistently being marked down for weeks at a time, more and more retailers online often follow suit. And what ends up happening, as we've seen, is that the market price for that particular product actually decreases, whether it's 15 to 30% below MSRP. Additionally, with unauthorized sellers left unchecked, retail brands often saw a loss in buy box, which I'm sure, as many of you know, is the percentage of times when your source of the product is the most preferred by the customer. So unauthorized sellers on the marketplace platform have the autonomy to control their price at will, meaning if they see that you're pricing it at $50, they can lower theirs just enough to beat out your offer and start winning and be the most preferred offer by the customer. This directly affects a brand's top-line sales, and if it permeates long enough, will start affecting the purchase orders that they receive from Amazon. Additionally, if unauthorized sellers who fulfill those orders to customers give anything less than a stellar experience, we've seen a trend where the customer will actually associate that poor experience with the brand or the product instead of the seller, which is what it should be. And so if you scroll down the detail page on Amazon of a popular product that has a few third-party sellers, you will often see in their reviews misplaced reviews that actually don't belong to the brand and have nothing to do perhaps with the product itself, but about the seller experience. Again, these are all factors to be cognizant of when growing your Amazon business. So during our time today, as a former Amazonian who used to be the go-to buyer for some of the brands in this room, I would like to discuss and perhaps even challenge you to question whether wholesale on Amazon is really the best way to grow a business on the platform. So just take a quick step back and look at Amazon from a 10,000-foot view. First, you've got the wholesale model, which occurs on a portal called Vendor Central. So how many of you know if you have a Vendor Central account with your brand? Okay. And then we've got the marketplace model, also known as Seller Central. How many of you work on Seller Central or know if you have one? Okay, got it. And lastly, there's a third platform called Vendor Express, which we call Vendor Central Lite. We're not going to get into that one today, as it's not the most common of the three, and we find that these two are actually the most popular platforms on Amazon today. So we'll focus on those two. And so Vendor Central is where you, as the brand, you're invited by Amazon to sell wholesale to Amazon, and they will then take the inventory and are responsible for selling it through. On the flip side, Seller Central is where you own the direct-to-consumer relationship, and you act as both the brand and the retailer. So historically, between the Vendor Central and Seller Central platforms, Vendor Central has been positioned as the better sought-after Amazon platform to work on. It was and still is participation by invite only, and it presented brands with the ability to sell their product wholesale, which felt familiar and similar to a lot of their traditional core relationships with brick-and-mortar partners. And so in contrast, Seller Central has historically been portrayed as the platform for no-name brands, individual sellers looking to make a quick buck. And so because of this, most established brands never really considered Seller Central as a viable platform for their business. And that has shifted considerably today. So since 2015, Amazon has begun phasing out various tools and levers that were once solely available to the wholesale brands on Vendor Central. First, Lightning Deals, which I don't know if you all like shopping the Today's Deals page on Amazon, were removed. In its place was a tool called Vendor Self-Service, which put the onus on brands and to coordinate and plan their promotions. However, basic things like funding and covering the discount were left for the brand to fully cover, which made it financially impossible for some brands to anniversary Lightning Deals year after year. Then many of Amazon's editorial and site merchandise shops were also deprecated, and that minimized the real estate where brands could then show off their latest and greatest. These two functionalities were some of the biggest advantages that the wholesale brands had over sellers. And so with this, the ability to get great deals in front of customers on the Today's Deals page, as well as the ability to get prime placement in Amazon's curated shop pages disappeared. However, even with the removal of these levers, I'd say that the most impactful aspect of Vendor Central that detrimentally affected brands is the loss of autonomy over pricing. And though not new in retail relationships, losing autonomy over pricing on Amazon has proven to be far more destructive in this case than some others. And so just for some context, there's no one person at Amazon that can control how a brand is fully priced on the platform. The platform is designed to give consumers the best price, which means many mechanisms scraping the web to make sure that it's being done at a very dynamic pace. And so when there were business levers available, like the deals, the editorial features, et cetera, and they were available to help push top-line growth, most brands didn't mind the pricing fluctuations so much because everyone was growing and seeing that upward trajectory. However, with the recent plummet into decline and the removal of these levers, suddenly the thinning margins and sometimes negative margins for entire brands became astoundingly clear. And so here on this slide, you'll notice a breakdown of some of the features, the pros and the cons that I've just mentioned aligned by platform. And it's worth mentioning here that certain features have similar functions. So for example, Vine, which is a program available on Vendor Central, is a program that allows you to ship products to a trusted community of Amazon customers, and in return, they'll give you thoughtful reviews. This can cost anywhere from hundreds of dollars per product to thousands of dollars per product, and not to mention several dozen or a couple dozen free units. On the flip side, its complementary equivalent on Seller Central is called the or early review program, which in contrast costs about $60 for a family of products, and you only get charged once you start seeing reviews come in. Additionally, A+ content, which has been shown to drive conversion by allowing a brand to show off its editorial imagery on a detail page, again, can cost anywhere from hundreds to thousands of dollars per product. On the flip side, the same or nearly exact same feature on Seller Central is free. And so today, the Seller Central platform has been armed with more tools and levers than the Vendor Central platform once held years ago. A brand now has the ability to run deals, create a branded storefront, maintain complete control over pricing, and determine exactly how much inventory to allocate to that business. And the consumers have spoken loud and clear. Marketplace continues to increase exponentially, not only in the brands and the selection that's available, but also in sales revenue. Now, how does this fit into your brand's omni-channel experience? How can this information craft your strategy for not only surviving in this quickly evolving landscape, but thrive in it? Based on the shareholder letter from Jack Ma last year, Alibaba's CEO, the phrase new retail has been coined and reiterated hundreds of times since as the new norm for thriving in tomorrow's landscape. This concept focuses on the digitalization, omnichannelization, platformization, and entertainmentization of retail. Yeah, it's. Mm-hmm. The bottom line is your online, your offline logistics and data should be integrated across the board. Just as pure play brick and mortar is seen as the outdated model of retail today, pure play e-commerce will similarly be seen as the outdated traditional business model of tomorrow and will be replaced by the brands that adopt new retail standards. Now, many of us think of this as online going offline. A good example of this that's related to the Amazon platform is Tuft & Needle, whose brick and mortar stores allow customers to purchase online in the store or scan a barcode and within 2 clicks have a mattress at their place in less than 2 days. Other examples include Everlane and Warby Parker, both of whom have created physical storefronts to help their consumers experience the brand online in person. However, this is only one half of adopting new retail standards. The other half of new retail is about constantly improving convenience, quality, and the experience while offering the best possible cost to the consumer. And these values now can be carried out on your Amazon storefront today. And this is what the point that we're trying to really make here, because most brands that we've spoken to don't realize that. They don't fully understand that these capabilities are available to them and allow them to actually grow their storefront in parity with perhaps their own website. If a brand had autonomy, for example, over pricing, full management of its inventory, and the ability to curate its brand store experience, minimize unauthorized sellers, actually control how the consumer sees your product on a platform like Amazon, again, creating that parity with your website has become one of the #1 ways we found to grow your Amazon business. 3 years ago, roughly 66% of Americans started their shopping journey on Amazon. Today, that number is 74%. And as we all know, even if they're not converting on Amazon, they're often using it as a repository of information to understand what is going on with this brand, how much, what kind of pricing should I be expecting, and when can I get it. The exciting part about all of this is that because a lot of these particular features are so new, there's a lot of experimentation that needs to happen to fully figure it out. And there's a thin line between being innovative and being novel, one changing the course of consumer behavior, the other being remembered as a fad. And so a few brands that we have found, some of whom are on Amazon, some of whom are not, who we have kind of earmarked as adopting new retail concepts, are also heralding this age or the return of artisan brands online. And they include brands like Drunk Elephant Skincare, whose transparency of clean ingredients has found mass approval. Girlfriend Collective, who gave away leggings for months in order to increase, just the entry of engagement. Parachute Home and Bedding, who discussed their supply chain and social responsibility very transparently. Away Luggage, who used customer complaints to develop the ideal luggage and offer it for less markup. and Linear Watch, who took the Everlane approach to watches, taking the frills out of accessories and providing high quality pieces, again, with less markup. And so, despite focusing on a small, very narrow selection of products here and being very new, relatively new in these saturated markets, these artisan brands we have found have managed to succeed quite quickly and make a name for themselves because they've adopted some of these concepts, giving a seamless, convenient, and integrated customer experience with an emphasis, again, on the direct-to-consumer inventory control, offline online parity, and having creative ways to increase convenience to the customer. So I think the bottom line of what we're trying to say here is that unlike the times in the past when it was possible to segment information to your consumer, especially physically speaking, geographically, I know that pricing segmentation in a store, for example, was very common for most brands in the past. Now is the time to embrace the opposite, which is you must assume that your customer has the ability to see everything, to see where else you're sold, how much you're being sold for, and whether or not you're giving them the best price and the best experience possible. And so deliver that information seamlessly to them quickly, and then you'll gain their trust as well as deliver the delight of the ultimate customer experience. And one last thing that we like to tell all brands that we work with and speak to is that despite having focused on Amazon in this conversation, the true leaders on Amazon are the leaders in their digital strategy, period. Amazon is just one piece of this very large, very quickly changing puzzle, but customers becoming even savvier and savvier almost every quarter are looking at that whole puzzle before they decide how to buy and where to buy. And so we hope that this was helpful and that you do too as well. Thank you. Yeah, and we set aside a few minutes if there are any questions in the audience. Yes.
Are you finding now that established brands are going through Seller Central versus Vendor Central? Is there kind of a movement towards that?
I would say that more and more brands are realizing. So I think there's a division in how I would say established brands are looking at Amazon. I think the ones that already have perhaps a traditional wholesale relationship with the company are definitely reevaluating, finding ways to see how they can insert more control into that relationship. And then the newer, perhaps holdout brands that have yet to approach Amazon are now actually considering making a storefront on the platform for the first time and doing it again through Marketplace. Yeah. I think there's another hand. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering from Amazon's perspective why they've degraded the Vendor Central kind of proposition. Is it because Seller Central is kind of a better business for them?
There are a few different reasons. Some get, I think, some become rumors or known as rumors. But ultimately, when you look at the numbers, consumers don't really care if they're buying from Marketplace or from Amazon Direct. And I think that's really the bottom line, which is if Marketplace can provide the same prime delivery shipping service to the customer, there aren't typically too many other differentiating factors that they use to purchase. And so Marketplace is much easier to move into. If you're a brand, you have less bottlenecks, less roadblocks, and quite frankly, there's just so much more autonomy available in the space that when you see how quickly it's growing and the number of brands that are coming on, it makes sense to invest innovation dollars there and help brands grow faster. Yes.
So, do you have any recommendations of companies and use cases to not work with Amazon at all, or are you advocating everyone should?
That's a great question. I would say that it depends on where in your journey as a brand you're currently sitting. So for example, there are, we've spoken to one particular brand called Dagny Dover, a fantastic brand. They make leather goods, bags and whatnot, and we actually recommended to them, it's probably not a good time to look at Amazon right now. You're in the ascension of building who your customer is and really making sure that your customer knows exactly how to find you and who you're all about. And so I think timing is really important if you're a newer brand. However, I would say funnily enough, even a lot of luxury brands are considering Amazon as a place, if not necessarily to be their biggest conversion channel, then definitely to control the information that's there and to control the unauthorized sellers that may also try to be present on Amazon. If you don't take control of your brand on the platform, it's opening the gate to allow someone else to do so. Yes.
I'm curious your thoughts on being a hybrid where you're both 1P and 3P, and what you think are the pros and cons to that.
That is a great question. And it really depends on the product category that you're in. It's a little bit different based on if you're selling apparel, shoes, luggage, etc. However, I would say as a general rule of thumb, product segmentation between the two platforms is one of the best ways to ensure that you will allow both platforms to grow. And so if that's something that you're currently in right now, I would definitely look at, what new product launches are you going to have, and then which platform do you want to really commit to launching it on. Great. Any other questions? Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more specifically about what your company does and what kind of clients you work with?
Oh, sure. So again, we are an e-commerce management and SaaS firm, meaning that most of our team is actually ex-Amazonians, and most of us actually worked within either the retail fashion space before working in Amazon, and also at Amazon worked within Amazon Fashion, Eastbay, or Shopbop. And so with that said, we try to take the best practices that we've seen that have helped brands grow and protect their brand equity on a platform like Amazon. On the flip side, we also have a software component, and we have built this because there are a lot of various obstacles that affect everyone, and it's nice to make sure that you have some sort of protection or some sort of advantage in those cases. And so that's what we do as a firm. I would say that we specialize within soft lines and beauty and lifestyle products. Great.
I've got one question for you. How does the introduction of the private label fashion brands affect some of these decisions, and how did that change the way you might think if you were a fashion brand?
That's a great question. I know, so in looking at the way that Amazon is currently positioned their brands, whether it's Larkin Row or The Fix, et cetera, they are definitely angling for the customer that's looking for the most value. And so if you just looking at the price points here, right now, most of the private label brands are not in direct competition with the biggest brands of those categories. And so I hear that there are more private label brands in the making, and so I think it's exciting to see what they're trying to build on their end. But I don't think that from a consumer perspective, that it endangers the loyalty that the consumers, for example, your brand's customers today, and what they're going to be doing in terms of their purchasing behavior. We find that there is a lot of search that determines how a customer purchases, and right now, private label brands are still very much a browse, if that makes sense. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.